want to welcome everybody back to another edition of Haversack Resources. Today, I've got the distinct honor and pleasure to introduce the world to Darren Mitchell from Mitchell Industries. I met Darren through Gare Maxwell. Gare came to a conference that I saw, and Gare showed us some videos of Darren when he worked at Trout River Trailers. And I have to tell you, I've never been more inspired about trailers in my life. I watched more YouTube videos about trailers, and they were just, it was an amazing introduction to the social media, the media aspect of advertising, and potatoes. And Darren, you're gonna have to fill in the blank on the potato aspect of that for me. But before we get further into it, Darren, I want to turn it over to you. And generally, if you could, just tell us about where you're from, how, where you started, work-wise, industry, and what got you right up to the point of Mitchell Industries. And then from there, we'll go a different direction. So all you, sir.
Thank you, Chris. Always good to talk to you. And like I said earlier, I know you care about people, so it makes it much more easy for me to open up about some of my personal experiences, that I know you're coming from a place that you actually care about your customers and just, I think, businesses in general. So it makes it very easy for me to share some of my good experiences and maybe even some of my not so good experiences along the way. So yeah, I'm excited to do this. Me in a nutshell, last 20 years, I've been a manufacturer. And the interesting thing about my manufacturing business is we grew it in a place that you're not supposed to manufacture. And by that, I mean, physically, I live on an island in the Atlantic Ocean, just north of Maine. And if you're thinking in business terms in manufacturing, we're not where the customers are. We're not where the freight lines are. We are up against companies that have been well established, places like Ohio and central US, the heartland. We're up against companies that have hundreds of millions of capital and have vertical and horizontally integrated supply chains that there was no reason on paper we should have started this company and succeeded. And one of like even just margins alone, I knew very on, because I was so small and insignificant, I was able to knock on the doors and meet with my larger competitors. I knew they were very happy making smaller margins. And right away, your eyes start doing this, going, oh my God, what the heck have we done? Why? On paper, everything on paper should have meant that we were defeated before we ever got out of the gate. And what it forced us to do is, day one, we knew we couldn't look, act, or feel like anything that was out there. Like, we had to redesign the business model from the bottom up, so we weren't putting ourselves against those competitors who literally could blow us out of the water at any step, way, or turn. On top of that, we decided to pick an industry where basically you're competing against wheelbarrows. And that's not very sexy. So wheelbarrows move dirt. I make trailers that haul dirt and asphalt and rock and mining material and agricultural material, big bulky material. And again, you're picking a very old industry, a very boring industry, a well-established industry, and there was no reason we should have even had the right to say we should start a company to compete in this space. And that was 20 years ago. So yeah, we had to change the whole business system from day one. We knew we couldn't go head to head with any other company and succeed, because I live on an island.
And so that's, you're talking Trout River, is that moved over to Mitchell Industries now? Is this pretty much?
So I ended up Trout River, great success story. One of the things that we used to grow that business. And as you mentioned in the introduction, was harnessing social media. And most people hear that term social media, and especially people in the business world, they almost turn off their brains and they go, yeah, I've heard this before. You know, I got a website, leave me alone. We work very, very hard on producing content to access our customers' minds. And most specifically, we wanted to access the customers' minds who potentially had money and had problems. So we had to make sure that we were building value-added products to get to those people, that we weren't always going head to head with the companies that were putting out 4,000 units a year, in which we couldn't compete on that mass production. And that was one of the key things we used to grow the business, was that social media component. And I hate doing videos. I hate it with a passion. I don't like looking at myself.
Couldn't tell.
Every time I'm on camera, I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting so old. And why is this crap happening to my face? And I sound like Kermit the Frog. And my wife goes, no, you don't. I'm like, no, I hear myself and I hate it. And people say, hey, what's with the little videos, Darren? I don't like doing it, but I love the results. So really good example, I would be in Louisville, Kentucky, and people would start coming up to me and explaining their financial situations, trucking companies, third generation trucking companies, saying, hey, listen, you know, we took over the business from dad this year. We're not doing so well in certain areas, but we think we can succeed in the following areas. And after 20 minutes, I would go, hi, I'm Darren. And they would go, yeah, I know you.
Really?
And that was such, like, having moments like that were so powerful in business, that I was able to access people's minds so they would know me, like me, trust me, and they get to decide if they want to work with me. And what it also did is it took the people who may not like what I do, or may not just like how I act or I talk, and I think I was doing them a favor as well, eliminating that relationship before you spent, you know, 6 months trying to make something that would never work. So I actually seen it as a sign of respect. And when you do the math, we weren't looking at producing 4,000 units a year. We were producing 400 units a year. But we were serving a very niche market with value-added services in a way that we knew we could not only compete, but we could also run a successful business while living on an island.
Yeah, it's boy, it's so much to unpack there with what you said. And I think the biggest thing that I'd like you to expand a little more on is innovation and the business model. And I think that's what trips people up a lot. There's a guy that does our HR, and I knew him from a past life, and he's amazing in HR. And he kept poking me about, should I start a business? Should I start a business? And I finally I cornered him. And I said, you've got it. Your thought, your mentality of where you want to go in HR is revolutionary. Harness that, go with that, and don't be like everybody else, because they have options. What you did, and what I believe you did, I know you did, is you took the option out of that industry where you became the only option because you weren't like everybody else. With that, what drove you? What was that behind the trailer? Because I saw some of the videos of how you showed what the industry was. Is one I remember specifically of, it was dumping and it flipped over. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, we rolled a dump trailer because it's one of the things that we were up against, and literally the product we make competes against a dump trailer, but it's more than twice as expensive. And I would hear from the industry all the time. I would go and meet with customers in, like, we supplied the equipment that paved Shea Stadium. I would go and meet with customers and they would say, Darren, listen, come on, you're twice as expensive and you're from Canada and I don't know where you're from, some backwards little community. So why should I deal with you walking in my door asking for more money? And my answer would always be the same. I agree. It is twice as expensive. And if I can make, what you're currently buying, if I could make that and be profitable, I'd do that in a heartbeat because a dump trailer is a great product. You know
Yeah.
what the response was after that?
What's that?
Where were you last week when one fell over in the yard and someone almost died? And I would say, exactly.
Exactly.
So if I brought some level of innovation to the table to help you make more money, to be safer, to get more drivers, to help with that, reducing the amount of driver turnover in your business, to get you more work, to haul in more places, to get more jobs at more time of the year, I just want to help. Period. But I agree with you. If I could make a dump trailer for $40,000 and sell that, and compete, I'd do it. But I can't because there's really good manufacturers of that product that already exist who I would love to recommend to you.
Yeah.
But the response was all the same: is I have a problem that I need to help my customer uncover, but I never want to object to my customer because that's their business. They know it better than I do. So one of the things I kept hearing over time was, the dump trailer rolling over. I can't get any drivers. The government is pressuring me to buy something like your product. And I said to my business partner, I said, can you find a video on the internet of a dump trailer going over? Anyway, no. I said, let's do it. So we bought a dump trailer and a truck and we rolled it in a video. And I'm like, that thing had almost 1 million views.
Really?
Everywhere I went for the next couple of years, people would say, "Are you the idiot who rolled a dump trailer?" And I'm going, yeah. You upset me so much. You twisted the frame of the truck. You ruined I know that brand, Darren. You ruined a perfectly good dump trailer. I did. All right. Well, I'm glad you're here because we need to talk. Every single time I would have that conversation, that they would feel that negative spot about, I really don't like that. And inevitably it got us past the first part of the conversation of, why should I ever trust someone like you? I'm the guy who's so confident in what I do. I rolled a dump trailer.
Yeah.
Because if you want to know what it's like when a dump trailer goes over, you go back and watch that video and there's a flagger in the background. It's me. That thing makes one hell of a smash. When it goes over and it spring loads the truck and it takes the truck over. I remember standing there with my flag because I thought I was cool being part of the video, and the ground literally went boom.
Really?
And everything. And I felt what someone goes through in that situation. Like, even though I knew we were filming it, everything just got totally surreal in my brain. And I even panicked. And then I was telling myself, no, we set this up. Don't panic. So I know what they're going through.
Yeah.
So we did so many things like that. Like, I did how-to videos on how to buy used equipment. And people would call me and say, don't you build new equipment? Yeah, but if I can help you buy a used piece of equipment and that gets you into the business so you don't have those new payments, if that gets you into the business and you're successful at it, you might come back and work with me in the future. But honestly, I don't really care. I just think it's doing the right thing. I have knowledge. I don't mind sharing that knowledge with the world. And we even did how-to videos on how to fix our competitors' trailers.
Wow.
But I would go to trade shows and my competitors would walk up to me and say, "Hey, you're an a-hole." And I would go, "What? What an interesting way to start a meeting." And I would
Yeah.
say, "Why would you say something like that? My customers watch you every week. My employees watch you every week. And every time we have a management meeting, they bring up in the meeting what you're doing. I hate you." And I would say, "So why don't we just get past that? And if you want to work together, I would rather partner with you than spend an ounce of energy fighting with you, because I know you also have a good product." And it turned out that over time, I started becoming their suppliers.
Really?
Yes. Again, I don't have enough energy to go to war with anyone. It is dumb. In the world we live in today, not enough small businesses are thinking about partnerships with their competitors. Think about how much information you could share about freight. Think of how much information you could, about all your supply chain. You could call up your friend who's your competitor and say, hey, what are you buying this stuff for? Actually, we bought it a year ago at this rate and I have too much in my yard right now. Could I have some of it? But no one thinks about doing that. They think we should build gates and put these walls around, metaphorically put these walls around our businesses, that we're the only people in the world who can do this. If you start thinking that way, you're now thinking more about your business than your customer.
That's
But
true.
every time I met with a customer, I would say, here's your options. I have a competitor out of Illinois. I have a competitor out of South Dakota. If you're doing the following things, all three pieces of equipment, they'll all do a good job for you. So in the end, it's your choice if you want to deal with. Yeah, but I was kind of thinking if I bought something from you, Darren, it would allow me to do a couple extra things. And I went, yeah, that's why we did it that way. So you could do a couple extra things. Because my biggest concern is that you're making money 24/7. I'm obsessed with my customers making more money. Because if I'm not, then it means I'm a one-trick pony and I just sold to them once. I don't ever want to see that. I would rather help someone buy a used competitor's product than to get that big win every day.
Yeah.
Those wins will come after.
Yeah, they do. And that's, it's amazing that you say that because, I think it's confidence also. One thing that, you have to, highlight is confidence in your product to say, go look at the competitors. I'm okay with it. And I tell people the same thing. I am, true. I don't have contracts. I've never asked anybody to do a contract. And they ask me why. It's like, I think if you're good at what you do, why do you need a contract? And in your aspect, if you're good at what you do, why not introduce a competition? Let them make that educated choice. To your point, what are the couple of things you're going to do that will make them and move the point? Maybe they're not ready for you at that time. But, if you're honest, and genuine, they'll see that.
So a lot of entrepreneurs don't get any training. I'm one of them.
Yeah.
Why? I think I was the tallest person in the room that day. It just and it frustrates me. And like I said, on top of it, I live on an island. There's not a lot of resources available to say, how do you do it right? So one of the things you asked what I'm doing today, I sold my business just before Christmas. One of the things I'm doing is working with entrepreneurs and actually showing them how to grow their business profitably. And one of the ways that you can do it, and especially if you're in charge, is you have to start acting like a doctor in everything that you do. And that's when you and I were just having a conversation about is when you walk in the room with your doctor, the doctor says one thing: what can I do to help? And the doctor will then ask you a series of questions to find out, where does it hurt? When did it start to hurt? Are you taking other medications? Tell me a little bit about your lifestyle. And the doctor, you hope, is going to give you a good prescription. What doesn't happen when you go and see your doctor is you go, who are you? And where did you go to school?
Yeah.
We don't do that. And I think one of the things, and again, this is a part of the training that I'm giving to entrepreneurs, is you have to start acting like the doctor when you're with your customers, your supply chain, your staff. And the doctor has, and this comes back to our self-confidence as entrepreneurs. You better believe that doctor's pretty confident when she or he comes in the room. I have the training, I have the experience. I am here for you. So I had to learn over time to approach all my meetings like I was a doctor. What I don't want to do is get into an argument with you about the thickness of steel. Your doctor doesn't want to get into an argument with you about Ativan versus something else. You just hope you're dealing with a professional that gets it right. So when we as entrepreneurs start to think of ourselves as acting like doctors in everything we do, your confidence level comes up. Because I never want to be in front of a potential customer or somebody in my supply chain when they're going pew, 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 and you feel like, why am I dancing? Like, this doesn't feel good. Like, I feel like I'm an actor on stage. I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to have to win the battle. I don't want to have to prove something. I just don't want to
Yeah.
have to be somebody. And I think soon as we get into that mindset as entrepreneurs, when you feel you're getting to that, you got to check yourself and bring your self back and say, you know what? I do know what I'm doing. I am good at what I do. And I have so many good systems in place, I don't have to talk about them anymore.
Yeah.
I'm merely here for my customers, whether they be my employees, my supply chain, my service professionals I bring in, or my customers. I'm here for you. What I don't want to do is ever see that situation where I'm doing this and I feel like I'm a second-class citizen. Once you start to slip into that mode in your entrepreneurial life, bad things are going to happen. You're going to make decisions that you should never, ever make. And again, if any of your listeners or anybody in the world is watching this right now, if you're an entrepreneur, start telling yourself, how do I act every single day? All you need to do is envision your last trip to the doctor and think of that instant, immense amount of trust you have with that professional, that you were able to open up in a very personal way and you trusted they're going to give you solutions. What you hope the doctor isn't doing is trying to sell aspirin to you. Because if I felt my doctor was trying to sell me aspirin, I'm like, all right, I see where this is going. But if the doctor is truly there to help you, then trust goes way up and you'll reveal more of your challenges in your business so that person's able to help you even more.
It's vulnerable. To take that metaphor of the doctor's office, there's vulnerability of going in there and exposing yourself. And whenever you're there, that confidence has to be there. So no, it's a great analogy with that.
But again, and I don't mean to go off on it too much, but I'm thinking about anybody who may be watching this in the future. When you start rhyming off to me your features and your benefits and why you're bigger and stronger and faster and meaner and cheaper, you're eroding trust with me.
Yeah.
What I want is someone to listen. But it seems like you only have a checklist. And if you think you throw 7 more checklists in my face, I'm going to go, oh, okay, I'm going to buy from you.
Yeah.
Don't do that. And again, we think it's the right thing to do because maybe somebody suggested that to us in the past, that that's the right way to do it. If I want to get forward with you in moving some sort of relationship forward with you, I just need to know what's bothering you today.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah. No, yeah.
And I need to give you the amount of respect you deserve to genuinely listen. And I'll give you a really unique example. There have been some customers that I met that I did so much research on. I would say, I know exactly what they need to get to where they need to go. And I would go in, I'm going to go nail in this meeting. I know so much about them. I'm going to be 6 steps ahead. And I was in the meeting and I could see the guy wasn't there. I'm like, what? How? This is disrespectful. I did my homework. Darren, can I tell you something? Yeah. I actually backed over my dog this morning. What? But I don't want to talk about your dog. I want to talk about, I nailed this. I'm your biggest solution for your business. You're probably right, but I can't hear you right now. And so often we get trapped into thinking, even when we're trying to promote ourselves as business people, we know what's best. Even if we think we know what's best, don't. It's disrespectful. If I'm confident in what I know, I just need to ask you, where does it hurt today? That's it. That's the secret. If anybody's listening on how do I, take steps to go forward, you just need to act like the doctor and say, what can I do to help? And what you care about today is what you care about. And that's what I need to be respectfully listening to.
Yeah, that's incredible, valuable knowledge. And I hope everybody does listen to that, because I'm taking it and I'm listening to you, and I'm trying to relate back to things that I've done and where I've failed in that aspect also. And where I've succeeded is exactly you said. I asked somebody, what is going on? What are your pain points? When I say this word, what are the emotions that come up? And you just let them go. And they start telling you things you never thought you'd ever hear. And the whole time I'm either writing a note, or I'm making a mental note, and I'm going to answer that question. I'm not going to tell them something I think they need to hear. I'm going to answer the question that they just put in front of me because that's what they want. They just told me. They just gave me the answers to the test. And I'm going to respond in that. And if they want more, they're going to guide me to more questions based off that trust and confidence that I just gave them. And then it will go. If I keep trying to force it, like you said, it's not
you're
going to
treating me like a human.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I enjoy that. It feels like a meeting with a human. Who cares about me?
Yeah. Had a chance to talk to Dr. Vince, and what you guys are doing in there, what you're talking about. I want to go down that path because I think that's amazing and I don't want to miss that. So had a chance to talk to Vince, which was amazing and gave me an insight of what you guys were looking to accomplish. Some of the things. And what aligned me with Vince and what you're doing is industry standards of what the world is telling people when it comes to consulting. And Vince and I talked about the big boys that are out there and girls. And we talked about what they do. And when you say what they do, it really is saying what they don't do when it comes to consulting. And it's just like you said, they don't take time to truly learn you. They're coming in with a solution. They're going to leave a book behind. They're going to walk out the door. And you're not going to be necessarily any better. I think what you guys are doing with the manufacturing masters, and I love that name, is asking those questions. Vince sent me some questions over yesterday, and he always frames it. Everything that I've talked to him so far is this could be foolish, this could be ridiculous. He doesn't frame it as like, this is it. This is the questions you need to answer. We're going to fix the world. He lets you make that determination. That's what he did. And the questions were amazing. The questions were aligned, and we didn't even talk about it on what we're trying to accomplish through Haversack and now through Manufacturing Masters. So I won't say you thunder. If you could just give the insight of that, because I think it's amazing. I really truly do. It really takes the heart of what you want to do for manufacturers, for entrepreneurs. And it's what I want to do also is give resources, give that mentorship, give that master's degree in business ownership, the stuff that I didn't get. No one ever told me my CPA should not be my bookkeeper. Boy, was that a mistake. God, I wish somebody would have, I could have had a video that said, all right, here's your financial team. This is what each does. If your CPA says he can balance your books, run. Those are the things I wish I would have known. So with that, Manufacturing Masters.
There are hundreds and hundreds of horror stories that you and I could exchange of, oh my God, okay, well, tomorrow's another day. Let's get through it.
Yeah.
Just a few to share with you over my last 20 years, implementing an ERP system. So there's $100,000 right off the top. And I had a slew of people coming to see me, basically telling me I'm an idiot, but if I give them $100,000, they'll make all my problems go away. If you're really consulting for me, I want you to have a good understanding of what my business is trying to achieve. It feels like you're trying to just sell me what you have to offer. So that was something that was, and I've seen that again and again, that people would frame themselves as we're here to help you, but obviously what you're doing is just trying to sell me whatever you have in the back of your vehicle today. That was very frustrating for me over the years because you're starting to ask yourself, who do I trust? Where do I go? What's the best? I don't know. And apparently the one who tells me they're best is the one who's also trying to sell me what they have to offer. So that was frustrating. The other frustrating thing that I had over the years, and again, you framed it well, who do I turn to, is I would take one of my managers. I would say, listen, we're a growing business. We were always in growth mode. And I would take one of my managers and I would send them away for training. And on Monday morning, we would have a management meeting and I would say, share with the group, because we put you on an airplane last week. You went to Boston. How was the training? The flight was late. And we went to see a Bruins game. Okay. Okay, who's we? Oh, I brought my girlfriend. Ah, how do I? Okay, I'm working hard because I want to get information in my team to grow and I want to share that information. How can I take the information that that manager got and spread it amongst the organization so we're getting the best value for it? And my last little pain story is that in last May, I hired Marcy for $17,000 to train my team leads. Again, we're growing. Team leads now have more responsibility. How should they be? What's best practice for a team lead? So how can they live up to that standard? So found Marcy on the internet, did a review of her 30 years experience, checked with her references, everything worked out, hired her for $17,000 as my team lead trainer in my factory. After the first session, my manufacturing manager came back to me and he went, never again. And I went, come again? Anyway, never again. She has no idea how our industry works. And she basically called us all stupid. And I went, oh, shit. And this thing now has my ego attached to it because I'm the one out and went and found this resource. So
Yeah.
it cost me $5,000 to get rid of this person.
Ouch.
And very frustrating because as a leader in the business, you want to show that you care. You want to make sure, you know, what is best practice? How do we perform? What's the bar? What does success look like? How do I get the right information to the right people on the right day? And I kind of had enough of it after 20 years. So what, as you mentioned, what Dr. Vince and I are doing is we're building a video on demand platform quite similar in your mind, copyright to Netflix, but it's Netflix for manufacturers. So what we're doing right now is we now have 24 subject matter experts that we've vetted, and they're all producing for us to start with 5 pieces of content. And what's going to happen is the manufacturer is going to sign up, very similar to Netflix for manufacturers. We want them to get small wins. So here's a video that's currently being done is what does excellence look like in shipping receiving? In 22 years, no one ever told me what excellence looks like. I no idea. And guess what? As a leader, people keep coming back to me going, hey, what does it look like? I'm like, I don't know. I think we're getting by. We're okay, I guess. One of the other videos that we're doing is how to deal with dead inventory, how to turn, you know, from your marketing and manufacturing, how to turn your website instead of an online catalog, how do you actually start doing e-commerce and selling your products all over the world? How do you fire someone? We've all been trained in it,
Yeah.
but what are the top 3 things you need? We already know the 1, 2, 3 rule, the verbal, the written. We already know that. But what are the top 3 things you should look for in a relationship with your employee that you know you've come to the conclusion we're on our way out? I want manufacturers to know that they have a resource where they can come and get small wins. They can take in that material when, where, and how they want it. Like I can't find someone who doesn't have that next to them today. So if that's how you want to learn, or maybe you're going to take your iPad to bed at night, or maybe you've got a half an hour on Friday afternoon, that's the where, when, and how I want manufacturing leaders to bring this information in. If you see something that you like, I hope what they would do is wheel the television into the lunchroom, grab a couple pizzas, and say, hey, team of 6 people, let's watch this video together. What do you guys think? Where do we go from here? But you know you're getting some impartial, vetted advice from people who are battle tested in the industry. And for me, that's incredibly exciting that you can not only learn at your own pace, but you now have a tool to disseminate that information to your team. Really good example, I talked to a company recently out of the southwestern US, and they told me that they're currently at $178 million, and they want to get to $400 million within the next 2 years. And I said, perfect. What do you need? And the response was, could you explain to us how our sales and marketing process works? And I went, yeah, quick question for you. Yep. Are you guys all engineers? Yeah. How'd you know? So, and that's great. You need all of those skills to be successful. However, we're not all built with all of that in us, but we have to act like we have those skills every day. So what I'm hoping is that team who wants to go to 400 million, they can maybe come to the platform for engineering, which they're interested in, but they may go over to the sales or marketing rooms within the platform and go, hey, that's some pretty good advice. And I got to take it in at my pace when I had 5 minutes breathing time. And now I have a little better understanding how very specifically sales and or marketing works in a manufacturing setting, which is very different than everything else.
Yeah, it's it's amazing that you say that. And I remember when I was in the Army, I was at Fort Hood, Texas, and IBM had a huge campus in Austin. And they came to us and they were like, listen, we're having a problem with our leadership. We can't retain people. We don't know what's going on. So a bunch of us went down. We spent some weeks with them, talking to all their folks. And they said, okay, came back and we said, we know what your problem is. And they're like, okay, what is it? I said, all your leadership is engineers. And they're like, yeah. And I said, how much leadership class experience did you get in college, in life, anywhere? I said, you're taking an engineer that does great at engineering and you're promoting them to all of a sudden now be in charge of people. And they've never led a soul in their life. And they're abusing everybody because they don't have any skills to be a leader. Zero.
Mm-hmm.
They're violating every last, aspect of leadership. They're running the playbook down, and everybody's leaving and going to HP because they're tired of being abused.
Yeah, and I really want to be fair to engineers right now because for 20 years I didn't have any of those skills either. I think I just had to fake it for 20 years. I don't know, pick the blue one.
Yeah.
And I think what I really want to do in an honest way is to say to anybody in any leadership role out there right now, it's okay not to have all the skills.
It is. It's learned.
But
Yeah.
you now need to know, how do I supplement those skills within my business before it causes a different relationship to suffer?
Yeah. Yeah. And the term born leader, there's no born leaders. Let's just call it as there's learned. You learn every day to be a leader. You get better. I spent 26 years in the Army leading people every single day, and I still learn every single day. And those are the things I think with being an entrepreneur, going back as a segue into what you're doing and the lessons and learn stuff that we learned or did not learn. It's a huge gap. As small businesses, we don't take care of each other. We don't advocate for each other. The big boys out there, Ford, Nike, all them, they're fine. They don't need any more endorsements. They're okay. They're doing all right. But you and I, we do. We've got to support each other. And that's the whole aspect is, we're the backbone. We're the backbone of our economies. 97% of industry, in North America is run through small businesses.
Yeah. One of the things that hopefully your viewers or listeners take away from this, and I've worked with some of those very large companies as well, I always get more excited over the other 80-90% of us, which are people making a difference. And the big companies make a difference too. I don't want to pick on them, but I hope to get a message across to anybody listening today is that one of the advantages you have over those big companies that you may not realize today is you have agility. You have the ability to make some of those things happen today. You got to figure out what they are to accomplish, but you have the agility to do that. And some of those bigger companies, they could literally be years in the decision-making process just because of their size. It's one of the advantages that we have as smaller businesses to make and execute decisions very, very quickly. So your speed and agility doing that is your advantage. And I think it's one of the things that we as small business owners need to embrace.
Yep.
And say, how can I be more nimble, agile, speed? Because the big guys probably need, 6 months at the very least to get approvals on things.
They do. And, and it's one of the things I tell everybody in our company is there's never a day two. There's only a day one. We come in every day and we relearn ourselves every single day. It's a new day. When we get to day two, we're in trouble. We've lost our edge. We come in and everybody's got a fresh idea. We're always pushing, we're always striving, we're always innovating in there. We don't get comfortable because day two means somebody's going to catch us real quick. And then day two is we're starting to lose our relevance. And the promises that we make to our clients start to wane. And that's really what it is the impact. You know, you always think about what is the impact that you want to have. And that's what we want to be every single day. We love the wins.
Well, you're coming from what I'm hearing is you're coming from a viewpoint that your wins are customer centric. What happens is businesses, as they get older, they become systems centric. And it becomes more about maintaining the system than, hey, what do our customers need today? Well, just set that aside for a second. We need this process to function efficiently, Darren. And I'm going, if you do that much longer, you may not be doing it for anyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, so I like where you're coming from because it's very customer centric.
I always tell people yesterday's solution will become today's problem very quickly.
Yep.
And you have to be aware of that, and people will not change. You know, I come across somebody and they go, I've been doing this for 20 years. Well, I know where I'm starting, you know,
Yep.
and I'm starting right there because that 20 years, you know, 19 and a half years ago, that was okay. It's not anymore. Things change.
I love what you said there, because here's what that person is not telling you. They, 21 years ago, did crazy things, worked their rear ends off, took chances,
You know,
to get to that plateau or that recipe. What they're forgetting is, I understand 20 years ago, but 21 years ago, you were doing something very special that got you to where you are today. How can we go back to 21 years ago and bring those things back that caused this recipe? And we can now build a new recipe to keep going.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like work, Darren. Yeah, what we do.
So we do, yeah. That's another one. It's a great thing you bring up. Is I always tell people, you know, moving the needle forward is not convenient. Cost savings and convenience don't go together. Profitability and convenience don't go together. They don't. You know, if you want to be successful, you're going to be inconvenienced. You're going to have to get outside of that comfort zone. You're going to have to do some work. You know, when I come in, that's what we challenge people to do. We're going to challenge the status quo. And I'm sorry, there's a couple more clicks that are going to be there. It's just the way it goes in there. You know, if I'll make it as easy and simple as I possibly can, but sometimes the path to success and greatness is not convenient. It isn't.
I don't know. It looks like it's cold outside. Maybe tomorrow.
Yeah.
If you really scratch the surface sometimes, I don't know, it's warm in here. We're safe today.
Yeah.
You can lull yourself into a very safe sense of security by starting to have that self-talk that maybe this is good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very dangerous thing to set in over time. And it really starts to work in. And again, and I said it before, what you start doing is saying, because I'm here, because this is my business, because I have four corners. You know what else has four corners? My financial statements have four corners. Everything in my life has four corners. Well, guess what? The world doesn't. But you're trying to fit it into these four corners, and this is how we operate. So what if I told you $1 million was right out your front door today? I don't know. We're here.
Yeah.
All right. And I have examples. Work with your competitors. Sell to your supply chain. Digitally innovate your company. There are 1,000 things you can do today to create unfair advantages that are your unfair advantages, that people can start looking at you going, well, it must be nice to be Chris. Do you know why it's nice to be Chris? Because he did the strategic things here and put in the work that got him to here. What you did is you short-circuited your own brain and you said, well, I'm out because he has all the unfair advantages. And right now is what I spend a lot of time working with my customers on is step one, how do we create unfair advantages? And you can. And instead of looking at your competition saying, well, they have this and they have this and they have this, why don't we just build unfair advantages into our own businesses? And then our competitors can look at us and say, well, it must be nice to be them.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? I'm going to be something different 2 years from now as well.
that never day two. There's never a day two. There's only a day one. Every day you come in, you got to relearn yourself. And, and it's more of a mindset. When I say that, it's a mindset that everything is always on the table with that. And I tell everybody in the company is, as a leader, I'm going to give you the 10%. The 90 is on you. I'll give you the resources and the guidance, and I got your back. I expect you to go forward. I want you to fail. Without failure, there's no effort. And that is where you want to be. And, I push them hard. And you have to, for the way I see it, for people to grow, you've got to create the environment. If you create it, they're going to follow. I truly believe it. And I've seen just amazing things in my time by just the environment that you create.
And I've seen that with your team as well. In the same light, the way I would share that story with my clients is your job is to create the vision, and you have to own that vision every single day, because your team has to have some sort of reason they come to work and perform miracles every day. They have to, because they can, if they're really worth their salt, they can get employed anywhere. Because if they're not those people, they're going to leave, by the way. But if you've created that vision that they bought into that, they're going to come to work every day and say, I bought into something for the future. The other side of the spectrum is, in a leadership role, you have to manage the very, very, very tiny things. And those very tiny things are the standards.
Yeah.
And I've seen this happen, even in my lifetime. Did you hear that, amongst our team, Bob called Sue a bad word today? Okay. Do you let it go?
No.
If you do, then whatever you let go has now become the standard. And that is work on a leader's part to say, whoa, time out. Bob, come with me. Sue, are you comfortable? Come with me. We're going to have a little chat about the way we perform as a team. Yeah. Tell me what happened. Tell me what happened. So this is true. This happened. Sue, leave the room. Bob, you and I need to have a little talk. And that message gets sent through the organization. Not that Bob got in shit. That message goes through the organization as the leader has set the standard. Mm-hmm. And from time to time, you need to enforce the little things as well. You come in with a vision, you allow people to perform miracles that I was never able to do. I wanted them to do it because I didn't know how. And I had to manage the other end, saying things like those little things, this is what we do. Good example, parking. People, why do you worry about parking? I never had a specialized parking spot in front of my building. I was always the last truck parked at the end of the line where the night crew parked. And I want people to, it's not right or wrong, it's just my philosophy. Who parks at the front of the building? Customers. Who am I? Am I any more important than anybody else here? No, I'm not. And that's where I park. And from time to time, I would have somebody who I promoted to a team lead try and park in front of the building. And I would go, all right, come with me. What are you doing? Well, I'm a team lead now. I don't even park in front of the building. Get your truck out of there, because you just upset 7 people who report to you. You're no better than them. You just have a different responsibility than them. And that's what I mean, that we don't talk about the little things enough, and those little things are the standards within the business. But those same people also look back to me and say, what does next year look like, Darren? And I would have to tell them. And sometimes I didn't really know, but I would create a vision of, this is how we're going to get through a pandemic. This is how we're going to do it. Do you know how we're going to do it? Step 1, we're awesome. We're going to keep producing world-class products and sell them all over the world. Boom, that's how we're going to do it. Oh, okay, good. And I would leave and go, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm going to do this afternoon. But they need to hear that. You can't ever lie, but you have to be out front and just keep doing that with your team. And the flip side is, when you have little things, you nip those in the bud real quick. And people say, I know where I stand with you. Yeah. And that's very, very important in your business, because what do they say? Culture eats strategy for breakfast. If you don't have that culture in your organ, if you don't own that culture every single minute of every day, it's just talk.
It is. And people sniff it out real quick.
Yep.
Everybody says they got the culture. Everybody, culture, culture, culture. And it's just a word, and what they think is it's really culture is an action word.
Yeah.
It really is. And, it's not a state of being, it's action. It's every day. You got to work it every day. You can't put something on the wall and say, we've got culture. No, it doesn't work that way.
Crap.
Yeah.
I could sniff it within 3 seconds. All I need to do is ask the lady to the left, is that how it really works in here? And she does this. And I'm like, well, there you go.
There you go.
That crap on the wall means nothing.
Nothing. No.
What it means is when people repeat it within the organization, and then you get people to repeat it outside the organization, that's culture.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
I only prepared one board. I got a whiteboard here with me because I want to make sure that I'm very careful. I got to be careful of my meanderings because I am pretty passionate about entrepreneurship in general because I have so much respect for an entrepreneur. I know what it's like to, personal story I got to stop telling because we always like those stories that make us look tough.
Yeah.
I know what it's like to cry myself to sleep, not knowing how I'm going to pay back millions of dollars. I've been in that position. And any entrepreneur out there today who has the courage to do what they're doing, I have enough respect for that person to the end of time. It is incredible. I don't think people know how lonely that position can be sometimes. And I have utmost respect for any, I will always give them the time. We don't have to be best friends, but I will always give that person the respect they deserve because I know, how many, some days you go, I don't know which way to go.
Yeah.
I got two. Oh, look, there's another one back there pointed at my, that's what they do. And they're good problem solvers and they're innovators and they're risk takers, and the world needs more of them. And I never, anybody listening to this podcast today, my hat's off, nothing but respect for you, because I know the amount of risk that goes into it. And it's very, very low. If you're really doing something unique at Haversack or any other business, if you are unique, you're going to be lonely.
Yeah.
That's just how it works.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for consensus from everybody, well, guess what? You probably look like everybody else then.
Yeah, you do. And I guess, the fear when you flip the switch, you say, I'm going to do this. And it's great for like 5 minutes and you're committed to it. And then all the fear comes in. And I remember my first tax return. Thank God my wife never saw it because she would have made me go get a job.
Yep.
And I remember days sitting in my home office and I had nothing to do. And you talk about the fear, and boy, you've got to scramble. Everything's riding on you, the whole 9 yards. Yeah. The heart palpitation. Then the first one, this is one that got me, was payroll. I actually rocked up and I was going to run my first payroll. I was getting people off 1099 and we were going to do taxes and all this. And it's looking at the bank account. Am I going to make it? What do I got to do to make that payroll? And that is some of the things that nobody will ever understand until you're there and you're responsible for that.
There's
no excuses. There's no excuses at that point.
You can't turn to anyone. There is no help.
No, there's no help.
I was in a Walmart parking lot, a 4-hour plane ride away from home, and I got a phone call from the accountant / payroll person who said, if we don't have $200,000 in the bank account by Friday, we don't make payroll. And I remember looking at that Walmart sign going, where do I go from here? Okay, I know payroll, that's pretty legal and government. And if I lose people, it'll probably be for payroll. So this one's an important one.
Yeah.
What the hell are you doing with your life right now, Darren? Well, and this is all the self-talk going on. And the other voice said, it doesn't matter. Shut up. You got a job to do. Yeah. And the little voice had to shut up because it was going, beep, 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 beep. And the other one went, I know what's all wrong. We got to fix it. And I'm in the Walmart parking lot. And I wish someone to this day had a camera on me go, is that guy all right? So I went, okay, how do you get $200,000 in 48 hours? Well, today we make it happen. I'm going to break some rules. I'm going to make some mistakes and I'm going to make it happen. So I went and seen the largest truck dealer in the area. Drove into the parking lot and I said, I'm here to see him. She said, he doesn't meet with people. I said, tell him who it is. Like I'm somebody.
Yeah.
So she came out, she said, actually, he wants to meet with you. And I said, great. So I went to the back room. He brought in the vice president of the company and they said, we don't like you. And I went, oh. And I went,
I just
why's
need
that?
$200,000. That's all.
Oh, this did not go the way I thought. I said, why is that? And he said, because we also got into selling trailers and you're cleaning our clocks. And we're trying to get out and get a name for ourselves and get a reputation. And you're just literally cleaning our clocks at everywhere we go, we hear your name. And I'm like, okay, what would you like to do about it? And he said, what do you mean? And I said, so you're big, I'm little. How do we work together instead of fighting each other? He said, I want your product line now. And he looked at the vice president and he said, so how are we going to make this happen? And he said, are you telling us we can have your product line? And I said, yeah, if you write me a check for $200,000 today, we're good. And he went, get him a check. Went, oh my God. And I left it. I went to the nearest bank to deposit that check and they wouldn't let me deposit the check. They said, well, you don't currently have an account. I said, get the manager. We are depositing this check. And after that, things started to take off and, where we are today. But, you have to make these things happen. But it's a very lonely spot. And sometimes I hear voices in my head, and these are things you don't share with other people as an entrepreneur. I'm scared sometimes. I'm scared I'm scared I'm not even qualified sometimes to do what I do. What happens, I had some wins last week, but what happens if we have horrible mistakes this week? These are all things going on in your head, and you start looking at your bank account going, am I making the right choices to get me to where I want to go? And I try and use that every day that's what I do in my day job is I spend a lot of time working with entrepreneurs, especially in the US, working with entrepreneurs, talking and planning and teaching about strategies to, at the end of it, no matter what we do in our business, it all comes back to your profit at the end of the day. It really does. So I can tell you any story I want. I can tell you about your plasma table. I can tell you about lean manufacturing. I can tell you, not to your level, I can tell you a bit about freight. I can tell you how to sell to supply chain. I can tell you how to set up an ERP. But if you're not really increasing your margin at the end of the day, those things are periphery. How can you take a solid look at your business and say, we want that margin to go from here to here so that 12 months from now, we're able to make better choices.
Yeah.
And what I don't want to do with someone is to say, here's how to buy better. But in the end, you ended up buying better, but it didn't really improve your overall position. So I spend a lot of time working right now with manufacturers and entrepreneurs talking about how do we start setting a path so that those two lines start getting further apart. There's a ton of tools to do that, but it usually starts with a mindset of how do we grow our margin? How do we become more niche? How do we get better customers who want to give us more money? Because what I'm hearing right now is our business is a race to the bottom, Darren. What? Yeah, we got to be the cheapest. And you're going, okay, we've already identified every problem you will ever have.
Yeah.
You can't be the cheapest. And what a weird strategy.
That is, that's unique. And, I didn't take any business classes in college, and,
I have a degree in geography.
Yeah, I'm human
What the
resources.
hell am I going to do with that?
Yeah, at least, I'm somewhat there. Human resources, yeah.
At least you know how to work with people.
Hopefully. But cost reduction and profitability, how little people truly understand the difference between the two. And it's like, everybody thinks I got to reduce my cost. Well, just because you buy paper cheaper doesn't mean you're profitable.
Yep.
It doesn't. That has nothing to do with it. And everybody's always asked me, well, what's profitability? I said, profitability is controlling the things that you can't charge back to your clients and your customers. It's the inherent cost that you have to take out of your bottom line to survive. That's profitability at the end of the day. That's really what it comes down to. It's what's coming out of your pocket that you've got to fund yourself. Can you control it? Can you be efficient with it? Freight. My stance on freight is, the last leg of profitability for your product is freight. You've got to understand that sometimes it's not cost, it's the quality. And those are the things that, you want to share. You want to scream at the mountaintop of people to get them to understand of this is what everybody else wants you to do, but this is what you need to do.
Mm.
You've got to find better resources. And that's why I'm so intrigued with what you're doing. I think it's incredible. And I'm going to watch all your video. I'm going to find the ones, might not be tooling, but there's ones in there, I guarantee, that I can learn from also. I think all entrepreneurs from a platform which you're developing can take something away in there and make them better.
Thanks. A couple things that I have for you and for anybody listening to this. If anybody has a pen and paper, and if they feel any of this conversation is worth writing down, number one is you don't have enough connections, period. There. It's one of the things that I spend working with business leaders on right now, saying you just don't have enough connections. People who you know and they know you, you just don't have enough. And it's a very simple concept, but when I start digging into the business part, like the nuts and bolts, because I have no problem diving into the nuts and bolts of the business, the parameters in which they have decided to run their business, the four corners, this is where we operate, they based it on 8 relationships. And I go, 8 relationships, and you decided this is how you're going to do business today? Well, yeah, we met with, 2 distributors, and this is what they told us. And then we met with 1 customer, and then they, we conferred. Mm-hmm. So what did the distributor tell you? We need to be stronger, lighter, meaner, faster, cheaper. Okay. What did the customer tell you? That we need to be the best and we need to be cheap. Okay, so this is how you formulated your view on your entire business today. You met with 6 people, and those are the parameters in which you've deemed to be successful. Y'all just don't know enough people.
Yeah.
Because I was making pretty good margin out there from an island. All I needed to find was the right people. That's the difference. If you want to, cut your nose off every day, start competing against people who don't have any money. So the second thing I would say is, number one, you don't have enough connections. You need to know more people, more people need to know you. And number 2 is you got to stop selling to poor people. And the reason for that is that's an impact statement. It's not a society statement, not about class. If you're dealing with people who are just currently grinding you down every single day, there's no win in that relationship. So obviously they're poor. We need to find the people who have the money and the problems that we can come in and act like the doctor. But this grind, I see it happen so much. Well, Darren, we supply the automotive industry. Okay, how's that going? Terrible. It's all pennies. We're just pennies. How do you feel? I feel like shit. And I got a ton of risk, and I got to keep everything functioning at 92%. And that's where we make 2 pennies. And you go, who do you work for? Me. No, you don't. You work for 3 companies who are beating the shit out of you. Yeah, but that's who we are, Darren. You just don't know enough people. If you knew 7 other people and one of those people had to wait in the line, you may have the courage one day to say, no, I won't do that for you. Instead of getting in this trap in your business where you're like, I have to. I went and bought $500,000 in equipment just to satisfy the 1 customer who's not paying me. Yeah, you just said that out loud, sir. You just spent $500,000 on equipment to satisfy someone who doesn't pay you. Stop selling to poor people. It's extremely, and it's not about them, it's about your mindset to say, so who should we sell to? Refer to number 1, you don't know enough people today. The underlying premise for that is we live in one economy today. There's no the economy of Massachusetts. There's no the economy of the mid-Southwest. There is one economy, it's the world. Everybody who's listening to this has bought something on Amazon. We live in one economy today. And if you don't get that, someone's going to smoke you next year, and you aren't in a position as an entrepreneur to go, well, we didn't see it coming. If your house is on the line, you better realize that today. The flip side is there's good news. You now have access to 7.8 billion people. But the fact that you don't currently do business in Switzerland today is currently just an excuse. There's no reason why you can't be doing business in Switzerland today. Refer to number one, you don't know enough people. But again, with all the technology we have today and freight, global freight, the way it works, there is no reason you can't be doing business and winning in Switzerland today. But in our heads, we know 6 people, 2 of them are from distributors, 3 of them are customers. We live in Arizona, so this is where we do business. How's that going for you? I feel like I'm trapped and I'm losing margin every day. Don't. You got to start seeing your business as a business and not a system. And I work in obviously with a lot of manufacturers, they obsess over the system. And every time we sit down, I talk about the promises we make and the promises that we keep. And within a half an hour conversation on the promises we keep side, that list is 2 miles long. They know how to keep promises. What I challenge them on every day is, how do you make promises? Because the promises you keep are only a result of the promise that you made. You spend no time thinking about, hey, who, how, what promises do we make to people that are most profitable to get the results that we're looking for? Versus, I need to shave 3 seconds off production time. Why? Because we made shitty promises? But nobody spends, like I said, if you've seen an exercise that we do, by the time we're done, this list on this side, how to keep promises, miles long. How do you make promises? I usually get a confused look. You mean like marketing, Darren? No. How do you design a system that you're making the right promises to the right people, that financially you can keep those promises and still get the results you're looking for? You're allowed to do that. What you're not allowed to do is spend 30 years beating the crap out of yourself and have nothing to show for it. That's terrible. Yeah, but I was everything to everyone. Oh, I know, you're a swell fellow. But you got to get something back for the risk that you took. And those are very heartfelt conversations I end up having with people about which efforts do you put in which places for which results. We can talk about your plasma table and common cut lines till the end of time. But if it isn't doing for your business what you want it to, you spent 7 hours getting that just right today. Congratulations, it's a good tool. Is it really going to get you to where you want to go? And I think too often we as business people start thinking about the process a little too much, and we undervalue the time that we spend on who and how we make those promises. And usually I get a very confused look when I start talking about that side of the business, going, I don't get it. If you don't get it, you're obviously not spending the right time and effort and energy on it. But guess what? That's the thing you do to keep the promise. So why are you letting somebody else in charge of your business on that side? Well, they told us we had to be cheaper. Stop. And the last one I would say is just, and I mentioned this before, is work hard every day at creating your unfair advantages. And I want people to start using different language as entrepreneurs. It's okay to stop selling to poor people. Yeah, but that felt kind of dirty, Darren. Stop. You know you're selling to people who obviously aren't paying you what it's worth. Stop doing it. And it forces you to start looking for the right people. And it's okay for you to develop these unfair advantages of business so that people can look at you and say, yeah, it must be nice to be them. Yeah, because we put the work in, the effort to the right parts of the business to get the following results. We don't want to look, act, and feel like everyone else out there.
Yeah. Question. The poor people, that's an interesting one. And I come across this all the time. There's this, I see this in industry, procurement managers, procurement. It's now starting to become a department relevant in industry. They hire these people and their job is to make a dime everywhere. And in some places you have no choice but to deal with the procurement guy. And they're going to, the company could be doing very, very well, but that relationship that you're forced into becomes problematic because they never stop. They're always pushing you. They always come back. Oh, I went to another vendor. I'm looking at this. And I'm all about partnership. I tell people all the time, I said, listen, vendors get replaced, partners stick around. Which one do you want? And the procurement folks seem to have this vendor relationship. They'll over procure, they'll out procure a partnership in a second for a dime. How do you advocate? How do you teach people about that? Have you faced that? And maybe that's something that, in the manufacturing masters to talk about, because I see that as a very relevant aspect of business today, is having to deal with that procurement environment.
Two things. One, I respect anybody who has business relationships today, that some of them you have to eat along the way and say, 20% of our business is to this usually much larger company who we buy from. Sometimes you just have to go through that. So I don't want anybody to ever think I'm coming in with magic wands and big ideas. I want to be practical. Some part of our business we do sell to those companies. But again, back to the first point I made, you don't have enough customers. What happens is usually those companies who are hiring procurement people are larger than us. And what those procurement people are saying, these are the rules, take it or leave it. I want to make sure that the people that I'm working with today have the comfort in saying, I think I'm going to leave it. And what happens is, as soon as you fall in that slippery slope with that type of, there's a lot of good ones out there, but that type of procurement person, there's an old phrase that I do when I do sales training: if it doesn't start well, it ain't gonna end well. So
Right.
if you have that first meeting with the procurement person and they go, I'm gonna give you a tune-up and tell you how the world works, you already know what meeting number 2 is gonna look like.
Yeah.
So again, one, bigger companies are doing that, and I've seen it happen. And what the bigger company, and this is going to be eventually part of their downfall, because that procurement person generally is given a very narrow spec to say beat down pricing. What they don't understand is, if I'm that procurement person, what is my impact on the business? So a good example in my world is I would be willing to work with any supplier who would sell me a more expensive paint that was better quality and better dry time. Because if I bought a cheaper paint and it has a longer dry time, I'm killing my production. And then if you think about how big level, because I produce big things, big level production works, you now have this thing where it's, something falls into 8.5 hours production, dry time. Well, guess what happened after 8.5 hours? I lost my shift. And now I'm paying one guy to wait around for the other, half an hour at the end of the day, waiting to move around equipment in the paint room, because you're like, oh, why do we do this? Well, Bob, who just got his bonus, the new procurement guy, he got a bonus for saving, $4,000 on paint. And you're
Yeah.
So any of those companies that I work with, the bigger companies, your procurement people have to understand the full chain. And I think the challenge is that they're currently being incentivized is just to shave dimes off the price. Because if you get a really good procurement person in there, they can not only add a lot of money to your bottom line, but they're really good problem solvers.
Yep.
And a good example of a procurement person who's a problem solver, I shouldn't use my mouse, but we buy this component in 7 parts, okay? What if we could buy these in 1 part already assembled, and we're going to save 4 hours of production time? Oh, that's a good idea. Okay, yeah, that's a good procurement person.
Yeah.
So we save production time. It's a little more expensive, but saving 4 hours of production time, huge money to the bottom line. But
Cost
most of them
reduction,
are coming in with
profitability.
such narrow focus. You're going, that didn't help.
I know. Yeah.
But-
And that's once again, cost reduction, profitability.
But again, any business out there who's coming up against that and going, Darren, I tried, and this is what they told me. Number 1 on my list is, you don't know enough people today.
Yeah.
That's it. Because what I don't want you to do is get hooked up with 7 companies just like that. Now you got 7 people beating the crap out of you every day. That's not fun. That's not going to put you in a better position. And the response is always this. It's weird. Yeah, but we'll be busy. Oh, I know you'll be busy. They will call you at all hours of the night.
They're going to wear you down.
Yeah. You know, good example. I had a procurement person come and see me to buy my product years ago and came in a helicopter. I'm like, cool. You know, we live in the middle of nowhere, a helicopter. Now there's stories at the coffee shop about me. And the helicopter lands and the entourage comes out of the helicopter and we have the meeting in the boardroom. And the head procurement guy looks at me and he said, I'm going to buy 17 of your units for $1.7 million. And I went, okay. And he went, so do we have a deal? And I went, no. And he went, what did you just say to me? 6 people on this side in suits and me in my jeans on the other side of the table. Nope. He said, may I ask why? And I said, because what you just quoted me is my cost of the materials. I can't do it for that. He said, do you know who I am? And I said, yeah, I'm getting a pretty good idea. And he said, I don't know if that was the right thing to say. He said, I'm going to tell you, Sonny, you get one shot and one shot only. Do you want my business? And I said, of course I want your business, but this isn't business because I want to be there for you for any warranty issues. I want to be there for service. I want to show up at your job site. I want to help you with training. And then when you have your next project, I want to be there for that too. If we did this, I'm not going to be there for you in the future. Last chance, Darren. So I guess I'm out. And he got in the airplane and they all flew away. And I went, oh my God, I just blew the biggest deal of my life.
But did you? But did you?
And 2 years later, so they hired, they ended up buying my competitor's product out of South Dakota. And a year after that, I ended up hiring that competitor's sales manager. And he said to me, can I tell you what happened with that big deal? And I went, yeah, I'm a little curious because it was a pain point for me for a while. I said, I had to look in the mirror and go, Darren, did you do the right thing? He said, we lost about $800,000. And I went, what? He said, here's what we did. We cut all the costs on the product. We cut all the corners. We built it too light and cheap just to make sure we didn't lose any money. And they came back and killed us on warranty. Like we rebuilt it 3 times.
Wow.
And I went, oh, I really needed to hear that because I felt like crap for the last 2 years.
Sometimes the best client you have is the one you didn't get.
Yeah. I'm driven though. It was hard.
Yeah. You don't want to give that up, but that's funny. Those are all great points. Those are amazing.
And you asked,
resonate.
What's that?
I said a lot of those points you just made resonate, and I'm taking stuff that I've got to look in the mirror too and say, yeah, I've got to do a better job in those areas also. You never stop.
Yeah. Last thing you asked me about at the beginning, I made a note of, and then I do this all day because I love this stuff. And it makes it so easy because I know you're genuine. That's awesome. You're doing everyone a service right now. The last one on my list is you asked me about the potato.
Yeah.
And I made a note.
Thank you.
So one of the things that I realize is I would be in Syracuse, New York. And once I got, customers to open up, and I would do anything. I'd go anywhere just to grow my business. I was hungry. And I would meet with, the big company in Syracuse, New York. And he would say, once I got him to open up, he'd say, do you know what your competitors say about you? And I would go, I'd love to hear it. He said, they say you're a bunch of inbred potato pickers who live in the middle of nowhere. And I went, hang on. We're not all related. and he would laugh and we would get through it, and I would, build rapport. But I realized that my competitors were using my location as their weapon. You're from the middle of nowhere. You have to be, inexperienced or not as high quality or value or professionalism. And I would, go everywhere, and I would hear these stories of my competitors using this as a weapon against me. And I would go, I'm not doing it to you. Fine. You know what? I'm going to own it.
There you go.
So we would, in our social media stuff, we would bring in like the big project building the new bridge from Windsor, Ontario to Detroit. I brought in the company that was building that bridge. And they said, what do you want us to do? And I said, I'm going to stand in front of the trailer and I want you to throw potatoes at me and heckle me. You want me to what? I said, I want you to run your mouth and put me down as much as you can and throw potatoes at me. I can really throw this potato at you there? I'm like, you give her, like just drive. And there were 4 companies in total. And I had them lined up with bags of potatoes. So we did a little video. It has, I think, 110,000 views today of me just standing in front of the trailer trying to talk about its features and benefits, which is always boring. But you can hear them go, where do you get your products from? The middle of the ocean? What are you like all related, you bunch of hillbillies? And they're throwing, and it hurts, by the way. And they're throwing potatoes at me, and it's just me trying to explain the product. And right away, we owned it. And once we owned that, my competitors couldn't use it anymore. So I would show people, we speak differently. We have an accent. We think differently because we have to. And those are things that you have to do in your business. You're not allowed to be like everyone else.
Yep.
And we embrace who we are. If you want to talk about people who have to survive, I live on an island, for God's sakes. If you want to talk about people who think differently, it's not because I wanted to, it's because I had to. Those are the kind of, if you think those are the kind of partners that you want in your business, I want to help. But if they just want to make fun of it and say that we're backwards and we don't understand what's going on, that's up to you, sir, if you want to deal with them. Because I probably know what they're going to say about you when you turn your back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it goes both ways real quick.
So we owned it, and it worked out pretty good because I would have, like I said, people come up and see me at trade shows and say, hey, if I buy a trailer, can I throw a potato at you? I said, if you buy a fleet of them, you throw a bus. I don't care.
You can hit me with the trailer. I don't care.
But it made us human. And
Yeah.
people, it's not something I aspired to do. It's just something we were desperate because we knew we were up against something we couldn't compete against. So we sold our humanity. And people said, it's kind of refreshing to actually talk to someone like a human being. And it seems like you're listening to my problems. I am, because I have to.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's great. Like I said, I love those videos. It was, and we're going to have Gare on too. We've got him lined up to come on and, love his take on what he's trying to do in the marketing.
Smart guy.
Incredibly smart guy. But once again, that's the visionary. Those are the people that are shaking it up and changing it. And that's the only way things get done. I truly believe that. It's helping each other out. It's being there for each other. It's what you put out in the world is what I believe you get back with that. So no, I appreciate it. This is always great. Got one last question for you. When somebody says, you're walking down the street and somebody says, yeah, did you see that Darren Mitchell video? What do you want people to say about you?
Kind of a personal story. I got to meet with like I said, I hate doing the videos, but I love the results. I got to meet with a manufacturer last Friday who said, I need your help and I can't pay you. And I said, I like what you're doing. Let's just have a conversation. There's got to be something more than money these days, but let's talk because I respect you. And I said, why did you call me? And he said, I watched your video about Secretariat, the horse race, the horse. And I went, which one was that again? And he said, you told the story of Secretariat who won the race, but number 2 trying to catch number 1 ended up, they had to put him down because he broke his leg trying to catch that number 1 horse. And I went, okay, what do you want? Anyway, I don't think I want to try and catch number 1 anymore. He said, I think I'm killing myself. And I went, perfect. I have chalk in my truck. We're going to take your factory floor and we're going to write out a little business plan because I don't want to ever see you do that. You're a good person. You're adding value to your community, but I need you to be in a position where A, you're going to make some more money, B, you're getting hooked up with the right people, and C, a year from now, you're going to struggle, by the way, but a year from now, I want to see you in a place where you don't constantly feel like this. You don't have to agree with me. You don't even have to do anything I'm going to share with you. My intention is I want to see you in a place where you feel like you have a choice. That inspires me more than anything because I know what it's like to not have choices. And that's when we make very bad decisions. We will make decisions, but we don't make our best decisions. And I said, a year from now, I want you to see yourself in a place where you're going, yeah, I think I can make 2 choices this year. Perfect. Next year we'll make 4. But right now we got to get through this, but I don't want to see you come in number 2 and they got to put you down a year from now. That's not fun. So I don't mind doing those videos, because I think if it can reach someone out there who goes, hey, Darren bleeds just like me. Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it for purpose, then it's a good idea.
Yeah. No, absolutely. At the end of the day, it's what you leave behind.
Last week, working with a company in Pennsylvania, Darren, I feel like a prostitute. And I went, interesting words to share. I said, tell me more. He said,
that only goes down.
He said it was a tough year. I'm taking on contracts that I probably shouldn't be taking on, and I'm getting pulled too thin. And I said, step 1, nothing but respect for you. Really? Yep. He went, and I wasn't expecting this. And he said, I think it's the thing I needed to hear right now. I said, from one entrepreneur to another, I respect what you're doing because I know why you're doing it. Because as we come out of a pandemic or wherever people's heads are at today, you know you need tact. You're keeping your tact going. You're trading dollars, but you're keeping your momentum. It's far easier to start to change course when you have momentum, but you know very well if you start from a stop position, it's going to be much more difficult. So I have nothing but respect for doing what you're doing. So you don't ever have to apologize to me for, I said, we may find a different word or expression, but you don't have to apologize for that. So those are some really good examples of if I can reach a broader audience by getting over my own insecurities, I'm willing to do that. Like even right now, I can feel my hands doing this because I'm, getting to a very personal spot. I'll do that to get over myself, but I've been in their shoes too.
Yeah, it's tough. It is. And like I said, you go back to everything that you're trying to accomplish, that we all are. If the pandemic didn't teach us something that, things are fickle. And, if you don't know if you don't know enough people, it's a very valid point. Things can become tough very, very quick. I was in groups and talked to people that overnight lost 70% of their revenue. How does that happen? What did they do to get to that point and not have the foresight? And it was scary to hear those. And it was like, well, I don't ever want to be that.
Yeah.
And that's going to keep me up for a very long time. And
I hope as things pick up, people learn from this.
Yes.
And those connections you need to establish today so that if you have a bump in the road a year from now, you're going to have that network to pull on. There was a time when I lost a contract for not so long ago for $2 million to one spot in North America, and I was able to fill it in Japan. And people go, oh my God, how did you do that? You just picked up the phone and made it happen there? No, those were relationships that I've been building now over years. But if I didn't have those strings already established, I wouldn't, we use the magic word pivot. I wouldn't have been allowed to fill that order into Japan if I didn't already have those relationships built. But that's what I spend every day doing, building those relationships. 1, what a great investment.
Yeah.
2, it's going to that's going to be your buffer during the hard times. So that in the future, if you ended up doing, let's say, $10 million of business into the Middle East, which I've done, you do $10 million of business into the Middle East, and you find that something happens in the Middle East that, the borders closed for some reason. Well, guess what? We have eggs planted in Europe, or we can now sell into Australia, or, hey, look, what happened, that big contract we were talking about for that food company in California, who would have thought it happened? That was a 4-year contract in the works. Again, we live in one economy. There's no reason you shouldn't be building those global relationships today. People are looking for your products and services. You just haven't met them yet.
Yeah, I say it all the time, is the only reason why somebody's not a Haversack client is I just haven't met them yet.
Yep.
And you just got to meet the people. we haven't been introduced. We haven't had a chance
Hmm.
out there. So no, great stuff. Great stuff. We could probably go on for another 3 hours. You know that. And
I think we're going to time out eventually.
we get time out eventually. No, it's great. Like I said, I appreciate it. I love what you're doing. I'm looking so forward to working with Vince
Great.
and being part of that. I think it's going to be great. Last thing, if somebody needs to get in contact with you, how do they do it?
Mitchell Industries, mitchellindustries.ca, or anything on social media, they can find me.
Yep. Oh, I know
There'll be a video of me floating around somewhere saying some random thing.
Yep. YouTube, Darren Mitchell, potatoes, and
Yeah.
they're gonna get you. That's gonna get you. So, hey, Darren, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. This is great. And if we impact one person today, that's mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Sure.
And you're, like I said at the beginning, Chris, you're genuine and you care about people. And I think you bring that through in everything you do. So your customers, at the very least, your customers are, I know, glad to have you, because you can't pay people to care.
No, you can't. No, you can't. That's the great thing about it. So appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I know we'll have many more conversations.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you.